Okay, so for the Tinkercad 3D modeling summative, if you are interested in making a keychain, I made 4 different ones here, and I'll go through each one in case you're interested in doing a design like this, but really you can design anything you want. So I'm just going to go ahead and tilt so you can see the first one is the letters are cut out, and then I have my letters kind of being kind of 3D there. I did a number instead of a name. I did a script with a little heart for the opening. Notice my opening here is a little bit different than just putting in a hole. So, and you can see they are raised, they're a little bit 3D there. So those are the things that I created. So I'm going to go ahead and just give you an overview on how I created those. I'm just going to move that over. Okay, so I started with my work plane. So to do the green one at the top with my name, I went ahead and I started with a box and I dragged it out. And then I made it long. And I don't want it to go any longer than 100. So if you want to go to 100, that's fine, but let's not make it any longer than that. And then I shrunk the height to about 3 millimeters. So that'll be how thick it is. And 3 millimeters seems to work pretty well. Okay, and you can actually make it wider as well. Whoops, I'm hitting the wrong button. Hitting the height again. Let me grab this one and just kind of, I'm just going to move that over. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and go to text. So instead of basic shapes, I'm going to switch over to text and characters. And I'm going to grab the text right here and drag that. And then under shapes up here, where it says text, you can backspace away the word text and you can type your name and you can do all caps. I'm going to do all caps. So I'm going to do all caps. You don't have many choices of fonts. You have about 4 choices here. So if you want to change the font, go ahead, but that's that. Color, we're going to be kind of stuck with whatever color filaments we happen to have. So, and then I'm going to go ahead and drag my letters so they're inside of my box here, and I'm probably going to have to shrink them a little bit because I'm going to need space for the hole. Whoops, wrong one. I think I'm just going to center this up and down. So I'm going to select them both. So I'm just going to drag a box around to select them. And I'm going to click on my line button here. And I'm going to click the center here. So my name will be centered from top to bottom. Okay, and then if I kind of rotate, I'm going to probably see that my name is sticking up too much. So and it's kind of going through the bottom as well, it looks like. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to lift this up a little. And then I'm going to shrink the height. It's at 10. Remember, our base is at 3. So if you want them to be raised a little bit, then leave them a little bit higher. So I can do something like that, where you can see my letters are raised up. Okay, they're not going through the bottom anymore. You can't see them through the bottom. So I can do something like that. I might actually just nudge them to the right a little bit using my arrow keys, just so I can have a little bit more space for my hole. Okay, so for my hole, whoops, maybe there's one too many spaces nudged over. Let me nudge back a little bit. Okay, so for my hole, I'm going to go back to basic shapes. And I'm going to grab the cylinder. And you can grab the whole cylinder too. I usually just grab this one, and I don't know why, but I do. All right. I'm going to hold shift, and I'm going to shrink it down to the whole size of the hole. Maybe should be like 7 or 8 millimeters, 6 or 7, somewhere around there. Maybe I'll just make it 7. So I'm just going to drag in until they say 7. I'm holding shift so that it's the same on all 4 sides, but I really want it to be higher, or I want my height to be higher. I'm going to adjust it here because this is so little. I can either, well, I can't adjust it there, can I? It doesn't give me the choice. So I'm going to zoom in. Whoops. Let me move this first. I'm going to move it up here, and I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to grab the top white. I don't want this to be 7. I want it to be bigger so that I can see it more. So I'm going to just make it 15. And this way I can see it kind of sticking out through the keychain. Okay, I'm going to drag it over here somewhere. And then I'm going to align so it's perfectly centered up and down. So I'm just going, I don't want to select my name. So I'm just going to kind of touch these 2 objects, the square and the hole. And I'm going to align these in the center. And then I'm just going to use my arrow keys, and I'm going to move this in a little bit. And I'm going to create a hole with that. And I just want to make sure it's not floating up in the air, because if it's floating up in the air, it's not going to make a hole. So I'm going to move it. See how it's, I'm just going to move it down just a little. And now I can see that it's going through. And then if I group everything together, I select it all and I go ahead and hit group. Okay, so this is one of them. This is where the letters are raised up. Okay, if you want the letters cut out instead of raised up, I'm going to go ahead and ungroup this. Ungroup. I'm going to click on my name and I'm going to make that a hole. Okay, now I might want to adjust the height a little bit and then just kind of move it down so I make sure it's going through. So maybe I'll drag this arrow down to make sure it's going through. Okay, and now I'm just going to go ahead and regroup. And now you have the keychain with your name cut out. Okay, so that's one thing that you can try. Okay, the next one, let me just bring this back in here so you can see it. The next one I will go through with you is how I made this purple one with my letters like this. Okay, so let me just get this out of the way again. So what I did for this one, I'm just going to tilt my plane a little bit here. This plane is going crazy. Alrighty, so what I did was, I think I was still in basic shapes. I don't know, I went all over the place. Oh yeah, I did. I grabbed a tube, and instead of using a box, I made it round. So again, don't go bigger than 100. Okay, you can make it wider or narrower or whatever you want to do. And then for my letters, I went to text again. However, instead of choosing the word text, I spelled out my name with individual letters. So I dragged the T, I adjusted the size. Okay, I'm going to move that forward a little bit. Whoops. Oh, I'm making it too big. I thought I was going to move it, but I was not moving it, was I? Okay, I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to kind of put it into place. It might be a little big. You can rotate it a little bit if you want to rotate it. Put it on an angle. And then I just want to make sure it's not floating, because it could be, yeah, it's floating. Okay, so I'm going to drag this little Christmas tree thing and pull it down. So it's, oh, you know what I didn't do either? I don't want the height of this. I want it to be about 3 millimeters again. So I'm going to go down to 3 for the height of my orange tube. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and make my T lower. So it's kind of just inside of it. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just adjust where it is located. So I'm going to pull it up a little, maybe right there. And then I would do the same for each of my letters. So then I would go ahead and pull an R, because, you know, my name is Tracy. Adjust the size. Maybe that's a little big, or my T is too small, one or the other. Maybe I'll make my T a little bit wider. Okay, so now I can adjust my R. And this is going to be a little bit of trial and error, because you want to make sure you have room for all of your letters. Maybe turn that a little bit like that. Make sure it's touching on all the sides, because otherwise when it 3D prints, it might come out in pieces instead of one solid thing. So I always think it's really important that it touches on all the sides. And then I'm going to just, yeah, I can raise that up. And I probably would either adjust the height of these or see how they're kind of going through, make sure that they're not going through the bottom. And then you just go through that whole process and you do your whole name. So let's say I finish the A, the C, and the Y. I do them all. As far as the little hook, what I did this time was I put the hook on the outside. Okay, so let's pretend my name was all done. I'm going to go back to basic shapes, and I'm going to grab a cylinder again. Okay, and I'm going to adjust the size to, I don't know, maybe around 10. So I'm going to hold shift, and I'm going to go to around 10. But then I am going to adjust the height, because I do want the height to be taller. I don't know what I just did right there, but I didn't adjust the height, did I? Okay, let me just turn my plane here so I can see it. Okay. Whatever, 21, 22, sure. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. Duplicate. I'm going to just drag the duplicate over. And instead of 10 around the base, I'm going to change it to like 6. Okay, so I'm just going to click on this. I'm going to type a 6 in here. I'm going to type a 6 in here. Okay, I'm going to actually lower this. I'm going to leave this one high so that it becomes the hole in the middle. So I'm going to change this to hole right now. I'm going to select these two things and I'm going to center them. So I'm going to hit my align button and I'm going to center this way. And I'm going to center in the center. Did I not get the right center? Nope, I didn't get the right center. Well, it doesn't matter because I'm going to actually turn it a little so I can see the center button on this side. There we go. Now I have it. And now I can go ahead and group these two together. Group those. And I'm going to just kind of angle. And now I'm going to have to shrink this too, but I'm going to move it so it is attached to this. And remember, my original was 3 millimeters. So you can go, maybe have it a little bit bigger sticking up, but maybe go around 4. And then I'm going to go ahead. Oops, I should probably I'm just going to rotate it and make sure that it's not floating in the air, okay? So yeah, it's floating a little bit. And I should probably center it as well. So I'm going to move it. And you can center it visually, or you can use the align button and center it. But I'm going to go ahead and move that down. Just put 0 here so that it's on the plane. Okay, and then I probably have to move it in just a little just to make sure that it's not going to become detached when it prints. So maybe something like that. And maybe even move it in just a little bit more. So I'm going to click on it one more time. I'm going to use my right arrow key and move it in again. And I think that's good. So then I would go ahead and select everything and group it together again. And that's how I did my second one. Okay, and I changed the color, but really it doesn't matter what your color looks like here because it's all going to depend on what filament is in the 3D printer. So that's the second one. The next one I did was that star. So let me hold it. And I just did a number. I did my favorite number. So instead of doing my name, I did my number. I did a number 14. So first thing you have to do is find the star. So I don't remember where it is. I probably should have written it down. I don't even know if it's in basic shapes. It's not in basic shapes. Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is. I found it. Okay, here it is. Okay, so I'm going to grab the star and drag that out onto the plane. And I held shift and I went to like 70 something, I think, with this one. 80, whatever, however big you want to make it. Again, stay within the parameters of 100. My height, I went back down to 3 again. And you can just type it in if it's too hard to grab it. Okay, and then I actually rotated it because I didn't like that it was like on a little bit of an angle. So I grabbed my little rotate here and I just kind of, oops, I'm always so bad at the rotate. It just doesn't want to work for me ever. Kind of rotated it like that. Okay, I did my hole like always, but I just went to basic shapes and I went to text and numbers and I just used the number 14. So you have to go to the second page to get to your numbers. So page 2 down here. And then I found the number 1. Here it is. Just going to angle this a little bit. I grabbed my number 1 and I adjusted the size. And it's going to be too big. And obviously the height, we don't want the height that big. Maybe make the height around 5. Let's turn that into a 5. And let's make it longer and a little wider. And let's move it. Oh, come on. It's still too big. Because I need room for my little hole, right? Okay. And then I did the same thing with the 4. Brought that in. Oops. I am being a mess here. Drag it. It's too big. So you probably should look at what the height is of your first number and make the height the same so that they kind of match up. Drag it into place. I'm definitely going to have to rotate and see what my, it's not going through the bottom. That's good. They're not floating. That's good. Okay. So maybe at this point I can go ahead and group this. and then I would just have to make my hole. Okay, so you can kind of see how that looks. And then I would go ahead and use my cylinder to make my hole. So that's how I did the third one. And then my last one is, let's get this loaded up here. Notice my name is in script. Okay, so here's something I found going through all these different things. I'm going to erase some of this just to give myself a little bit of room. I'm going to erase my 14 one. It'll let me select it. There we go. I'm just going to backspace it away. Oh, just backspace the bottom. Okay, it just gives me a little more room on my plane. Maybe I can move these out of the way a little bit. Okay, that gives me a little bit more working space. All right, so what did I do? The first thing I did was I found, gosh, I wish I would have written down where I found these things, but I think I went into featured shapes, possibly. Yeah, and I used this soft box. And I pulled it out to around 100. And I made it a little wider this way. Okay, and I changed the depth to about 3. And then here's something that I found. I think it's still under featured, but let me just make sure. Let me go to the second page. Nope, it wasn't under there. Where would I have found these? Well, there is some custom text here as well, but let me think about where I found these. Maybe in the shape library. Gosh, I wish I could remember. No, I don't think it was in here. But let me just double check just in case. I mean, you guys, if you go through these, there are some really cool things in here. Shoot, I wish I got to remember where that text was. I really thought it was in featured, but maybe it's in all. Let me just check the second page one more time. Did I miss it? No, I didn't miss it. All right, let me check all, because I don't think it was under anything else, unless it was under shape library. But I just checked that one too, didn't I? Oh yeah, this is where it is. Okay, it's in here. And maybe it's on the second page. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so here's script text right here. Okay, so I'm going to pull that in. And now you actually have a choice of some different texts or fonts. Okay, so I'm going to change the word text to my name. Just give it a second to load. And then under font, there are some different fonts that you can try. So you can go ahead and play around with different fonts a little bit. I mean, it's not great. You're not going to have all the fonts you would have if you were using, Pixlr or something like that. But it's a little bit more than if you were just adding text the other way by going here and going to text. Okay, so then I just drag my name inside here. I adjusted the size. I want to make sure it's touching on all 4 sides. So go ahead and do that. And maybe I'll rotate it just a little. Oh, no, wrong rotate. I always do that, don't I? Oh, too much there too. I want to free rotate it. That's why. What else? You know what? I'm not rotating it because I don't know why, but I can't do it. All right, but I probably do have to do a little bit of adjusting here. Okay, maybe adjust the height a little bit instead of 10. Maybe come down to around 5. Maybe nudge it just a little so it's up. I don't think it's coming through. Maybe it's coming through a little. So just make sure it's at 0 on the plane, or maybe even up a little bit. So maybe take this little blue handle and maybe I'll move it up to 1 so it's not coming through the bottom. There we go. And then I made the heart. I used a heart as my hole right here, and I believe hearts were in basic shapes. If not, it's not a big deal, but I did it exactly the same way I did the cylinder. Okay, I just grabbed a heart, and then I just adjusted the size. I rotated it, and so I went to rotate. Look at, I actually did a good job rotating right there. I made it a hole. I'm going to adjust the height. Okay, And then I just adjusted the width here. Instead of 26, maybe try like 8. And then do the same thing on this side. Instead of 28, maybe 8. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag it where I want it to go. Maybe I'll center it perfectly with the keychain. So I'm going to select those two things. I'm going to hit align. I'm going to hit the center button over here. So it's centered. I'm going to pull it down. Do that right? Yeah, I did. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and group this whole thing together. And it should be a heart. Oh, here we go. Okay, so those are some general ideas. You are welcome to go to different shapes and try different things and play around with things. I mean, there are so many cool things if you're willing to explore in all these different categories, and you can make something really, really cool. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions.